In this video, I'm going to walk you through the steps for completing the first SketchUp assignment. I'm at sketchup.com, and you can see that at the top here. Here's the sign-in portion of the page, so I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to enter my CCC email and enter my password. Okay, once here, I'm going to click on my account up here and go to my apps. And I'll click on this view included applications and I'll launch SketchUp. Okay, once I've launched, I'll see a page that looks like this one. And I'm going to click on this arrow, this downward arrow, and do an architectural feet and inches based file. And it'll open up a new file. You can leave the scale figure or delete it as recommended in the assignment description. So the next thing that I'm going to do is create some tags. And I would think about these similar to the way that layers work in AutoCAD and in other software. Okay. In the SketchUp file, the tags can be found by clicking over on the right icon bar there. And there's a symbol that allows you to create new tags. It's this plus symbol. So I'm going to click on that. And I'm going to create one called ground and say OK. And I'm going to create another one called wall or walls here. And then I'm going to create a third one called roof. So back in the assignment sheet, what we'll do is we'll start by drawing a 200 foot by 200 foot square. And then we'll make the top of that, the top of this pavilion platform. And then we'll extrude downward using the push-pull tool. Okay, so I'm going to minimize the tags here. And I'll proceed with starting to draw the square. And now I'm going to make a square that's 200 feet by 200 feet. I'm going to go over to the left here and select the rectangle tool. And I'm going to click on the origin point, which is similar to 0, 0 as you've used in AutoCAD. And I'm going to drag my cursor to the upper right. And if you'll notice down in the lower right, the dimensions are identified. So when I type in 200 feet, you can see down there that they are changing, or that the dimensions are appearing there. And you can click on enter to produce that 200 foot by 200 foot square. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'll go to the selection tool here, and I'm going to make a window around the whole thing. I'm going to remove the figure from my selection. I've held down Shift and clicked on him. And so now he's no longer part of my selection set. And then I'm going to use this push-pull tool. And I'm going to click on the origin. I'm going to drag my cursor down, and I'm going to put in there, if you look at the lower right-hand corner, that distance of 3 feet to make sure you use the units. Okay. You should see that the top of the platform here is at 0 on what we would call the Z-axis, which is here. Okay. X is this way, Y is this direction, and Z is this direction. Okay, now a couple things that we'll do before we'll add more things. The way that these components appear is they're all individual pieces, surfaces that make up this three-dimensional form. And it can get to be a little messy if you leave them separated like this. So the next thing that we'll do is to group them so that we can move them all together and just kind of navigate within the file a little bit more easily. So how do you group them? Well, basically, I'm going to go back and select everything. You know, and again, I don't want to include the scale figure there. So if you did make a window and include him, you want to hit Shift and pick him to remove him from the selection set. You can also move him out of the way if it's becoming a bit of a problem, or maybe you've already deleted him from the file. It's up to you. All right, once everything is selected, you right click and you make a group. Now I'll deselect and then select again so you can see now. And by the way, to deselect, I just click outside here, and to select again, I can click on the form. Okay. All right. The next thing I'll do with that grouped element is to go up to the entity tool, and right now, you could give a name to the instance, but that's not necessary at this point. Right now it's untagged. In other words, it's not on a so-called tag or layer. And I'm going to put it on the ground layer. And I'm also going to lock it because, again, I kind of want to make sure certain things don't move around while I'm trying to add more content to the file. So I'll click on that. And you'll notice that it's turned red. It's no longer blue. That indicates that it's been locked. In this next part of the assignment, you'll be making some walls. Okay, so the thickness of the walls is 5 inches. In this example that's shown here, there are 5 different walls. They're kind of at different angles. And just there's some criteria here beyond the 5 inches. You know, how long do you make your walls? It's entirely up to you. How long or how big is this pavilion that you're going to be drawing going to be on the site or on that top of platform level? Again, this is totally up to you. The one thing I would suggest at this point, though, is that when you define your height, that you make it a height that would work with a human figure. So, you know, you don't want to make it too short, and then, you know, it's not possible for a person to walk through it. So I would say at a minimum, the height wants to be 8 feet, but it could be taller if you'd like for it to be. Okay, so I'm going to return to the Sketchup file, and I'll continue. Now, before you begin drawing in your walls, you know, you can kind of create them and move them around and kind of do the design work while you're in SketchUp. But you may find it helpful to create, you know, a little diagram that kind of lays out your intended design before you start drawing. Again, that's entirely up to you how you want to proceed. So I have some ideas about how I'd like to design my pavilion. I'm actually going to make it kind of filling a big chunk of this site. At least I'm going to make some walls that are kind of long. And I don't know, I may make some changes as I go along, but my plan is to perhaps create a configuration that maybe looks something like what you see right there. So this creation of the walls and the roof that we'll do later, you can do it in these kind of 3D views. If you prefer to work in 2D, you can go to the scene tool, and you can kind of go to these preset views, like this is the plan, for example. But I'm going to go ahead and construct them in 3D. So I'll start with one of the first walls will be from the midpoint here, and I'm going to make it I'll make it in the X direction 5 inches, and in the Y direction, 70 feet. Okay. All right, so now it's a long rectangle, and then what I can do with that now is to use the extrude or the push-pull tool like I did previously and give it some height. So I'll click a point and then I'll guide it upwards, and I'm going to make mine 8 feet. Okay. So you can see with my scale figure here, it's, it's a pretty long wall, but it is pretty small on my site here, or on my pavilion platform. All right, now the other one I'll make, and then I'm going to move it over, but I'll sort of start with a similar process here. Well, actually, before I go and do that, though, we're going to follow the same process of grouping it. So make a window around the whole thing, make a group, and then go to the entity information. It's currently untagged. Put it on the wall tag, give it a wall tag, assign it to that tag, and then lock it unless you want to move it. You can always come back and unlock things that you've locked. Okay. I'll just zoom and rotate around a little bit more. I'll make my second wall. And this one, I'm going to start it also. You can see it's identified the midpoint of that platform group. I'm going to click at that point, and then for my X and Y, I'll make mine 5 inches by 150 feet. This is going to be a super long wall. Okay. And I'll go through the same steps of selecting those lines and use press, pull, pick a point, bring it up to 8 feet. And I'll go back to the selection tool and right click, make group, and go to entities and put it, give it the wall tag. And I'm not going to lock this one. I'm going to leave it unlocked because I want to move it because it's overlapping here. So I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to use the move tool here. And I'll pick a point and move it over, let's say 10 feet. Okay, so now I have this kind of way for people to kind of walk through, and I can continue adding a few more walls. The next wall I'm going to make, I'm going to move it to a diagonal or rotate it so it's not aligning with either of these walls. I'll start off though by just drawing it in relationship to those walls, and then I'll use the rotate tool to create the angle. So I'm going to make this one, we'll say 5 inches by 40 feet. Enter. How do you rotate the wall? Select them all. And then if you go over to the toolbar over here and you click on the little arrow, you should see some options for being able to kind of move and rotate and scale. I'm going to click on the rotate one. I'm going to give a base point and a relative point, and then I'll input 45 degrees. You could put whatever angle you want. Okay. And I'll go back to the selection tool. I think maybe I'll move it a little bit as well. So I'm going back to that tool and I'm going to shift it up a little bit. Maybe kind of close to where that one wall ends. Okay. And now I'm going to use the press pull tool to give it some height. And I'll do the same thing that I did with the other one. I will select all of the planes of that form, right click, make group, use the entity info tool to assign it the tag of walls. And I'll also lock that one. So the one I haven't locked yet is this one down here, and I'll go ahead and lock that one as well. Okay, I'm going to create 2 more walls. I'm going to put the sign here. One of them is going to be back here, and another one I'll do here. So let's go ahead and create another rectangle. Try to make it roughly in relationship to that wall there. This one, let's see here. I may have to complete this one a couple of times. For now, I'm going to put 50 feet, 5 inches. Good. I'll use the selection tool to capture them all. I'll extrude with the press pull tool 8 feet. And I'll use the selection tool again to capture them all. Right click, make group, and put that also on the wall. Tag list there, and I'll create my last wall, which is going to be roughly at the edge of my rotated wall. And that one, let's try 35 feet, 5 inches. Left one. Feet. Select them, right click, make group, wall tag, lock. That should be all of the walls that I'll need for my project. And now what I'm going to do is work on creating a roof. It's going to just kind of cover this portion down here. So I'll start by making a square. And then I think I'm going to let it overlap the walls a little bit. Maybe, and this one is also going to have a thickness of 5 inches, but it will be in the vertical direction. So I'll select it all. And I'm going to deselect these 2. They're already locked, so it's really at them anyway. But then I'll go to the press tool and click and give them a height of 5 inches. I'll go ahead and select all of them. This new entities. Remove those 2. Right click, make group, and entity information. I'll put this one on the roof layer. Tag. And I'm not going to lock it yet because I need to move it. So let's take a look at it from more of an angle type. So you can see it's like 5 inches high above that platform level. I'm going to move it. Okay. I'm going to get the constraint to go in the vertical direction and input 8 feet from my height, whatever your wall heights. I have a million ideas you kind of have to go through and meander your way through it. Move around. Okay, one thing that I didn't do was to give a title to this file. Now, a folder which I created here. I'm going to call it Pavilion 1 and save in this folder that I created. Later. So the next thing, the last part of this is to set up some scenes that then you can download and that you can create images that basically can be uploaded. So how do you do that? One way is to just simply use the orbit tool. So that's what I'm using right now when I hold down my center wheel on the mouse button. You know, you can do some where it's like you're a bird flying over, but I try to do a few of these where you're actually like a person in the space, you know, looking into the building. Maybe you position yourself on the platform. Anyway, I will create a scene using this view that I have here on the screen. Just tweak it a little bit, shift it around. To get to the scenes, you're going to go to this icon here on the right. And right now it says there are no scenes in this model. I'm going to click on the plus symbol. So it's added this. So if I now then move around and then I click on that scene, it should take me back to that scene. That's one way to do this. The second method I'm going to use is using the position camera. I've already set, you know, I did use one of the presets to get this kind of more bird's eye view. And I'm going to place my camera. You'll notice the height offset is 5 feet 6. And I will hold down my left mouse button so I can give the direction of the view. Okay, and then I'm going to zoom back a little bit. Another way that you can set up for a scene is to use the camera tool. So I'm currently in a more of a bird's eye view, and I'm just going to click on a spot here, and it should take me, and you can see it's established an eye height of 5 feet 6 inches. And if that looks okay, you know, leave it as it is. Otherwise, you can kind of use the orbit tool to kind of fine tune the view. Like I want to maybe see through the slot here in addition to other things. So camera placement can be good to kind of generally place yourself, but you may find that you need to kind of tweak it a little bit. So I'm going to create a second scene here, and then I'll generate one more. So you should create 3 scenes for your model. For my third scene, I tried to kind of get inside the area that's covered by the roof. And I'll go ahead and create the third one there. Okay, so that's the 3 scenes. And if you click on them, again, you can return to those positions. So I'm in scene number 1 right now. If you go up to the menu, you can download this view as a PNG file. So I'll go ahead and do that. Right. And then with this file, you can add it to your Google Drive folder and then upload it to Miro. So I'm in this preview spot and I'm going to click on export as PNG. Okay, so I should have one that's called Pavilion number 1 here. And you can open that and make sure it looks okay. So do the same thing for scenes 2 and 3. When you're done with that, be sure to save. And then you can click on the same download option and download the file as an SKP. So that's the SketchUp file type. And upload that file to your Google Drive folder. And that's it for this first exercise.